Hi, I'm Dawn Montefusco, life coach for writers and creatives, and this is the Ultimate Writer Series, how to break through resistance, ignite your muse, and honor your soul's calling. And today we have a very special guest, Dr. Andrea Pennington. She's an integrative physician, acupuncturist, meditation teacher, publisher, and media specialist. She's the founder of Make Your Mark Global and Innate Vitality, a #1 international best-selling author and highly acclaimed 3-time TEDx speaker. As a sought-after media personality for the last 2 decades, Dr. Pennington has shared her candid, empowering insights on vitality and resilience on The Oprah Winfrey Show, The Dr. Oz Show, ITV This Morning, CNN, The Today Show, Lux TV, Thrive Global, and Huffington Post, and as a news anchor for the Discovery Health Channel. Her mission is to help as many lightworkers as possible to reach global luminary status and spread their wisdom all over the world. Andrea, that felt so good to read. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Dawn. What a pleasure.
So tell us about any recent projects or what you're up to these days. You've got lots going on and it's always fun to hear about.
Yeah, you know, just what you read in the intro is what I'm up to. I am at the helm of a media company, Make Your Mark Global, and our particular niche is the soul-inspired entrepreneur, coaches, healers, light workers, and therapists. And the exciting thing is that we're bringing people together in group book projects where each author contributes a chapter.
Wow.
And then we're giving them a global push in the media with online interviews, video interviews, podcasts, print, as well as a book launch in the south of France. So we're elevating the light worker to like a superstar status.
I love this. This is the time to do it too. And I think that the internet is a blessing in that respect. We're so globally connected.
Yes.
So you've had an amazing life. Specifically, you've had some self-discovery, as in the book that I just got, which I can't tell you how grateful I am that you wrote, called I Love You, Me, signed me kind of. And you were very authentic and vulnerable in coming out about how you didn't feel that you were living into your purpose. And that was causing depression to the degree that you had an actual meltdown that you talk about. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey and how that really opened up your life?
Yes, it's a story that I think many people know very well. You know, you want to please your family. And so many of us, like I did, I went down this path of really trying to tick all of the boxes, getting a degree, getting good grades, you know, following what I believed was expected of me.
Yeah.
And I'm really good at that. And then I got to a point in medical school where I was depressed. And I should say that for most of my life, performing arts was really where my passion lies. I was always kind of nerdy. My mother's also a doctor, so I loved learning about the mind-body connection and science. But the thing that really lights me up is the arts and being creative.
Yeah.
So when I got to medical school, all I could really do was study. I didn't have time to do creative things on the side.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the depression really got to one of its lowest points to date. And then when I got into, you know, my medical career, once again, I was feeling a little like just not fulfilled. And I took some time off from my medical world and got hired by an internet startup company. And this was when my entrepreneurial passion kind of got ignited. But what was interesting was about a year into my work with this company, I was recruited by the Discovery Health Channel. And it had always been a dream of mine to work at Discovery. And at the time, of course, I thought, how would a doctor ever work for the Discovery Channel? But as it turned out, they, at the time that I was recruited back in 1999, they had just launched the Discovery Health Channel and they were looking for a medical director. So it was like this dream come true. And this was the beginning of me starting to be able to bring my creativity along with my love of science and medicine together.
Yeah.
And that was really satisfying for like the first year. And then they put me on TV, and it was interesting because at first, I really thought I was going to be on TV right away. Because I love TV. I'd been a performer. I worked, at our TV station in college. And when I got there, one of the heads of production said, you kind of have a face for TV, but you look too young. No one's going to believe you're a doctor. Yeah, Dawn.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, it was like a major smackdown. And so my dream of being on TV was like denied.
Wow.
Yeah, but like a year later, we had a new president who came on. And this is why I'm such a big believer in mentoring, and especially visionary mentors, because this president, Bob Reed, came on and he had this meeting with everyone as he got to the network, and he says, "Oh, I have this vision for your role." And I'm kind of like, okay, I'm the medical director. I mean,
yeah.
what kind of vision do you have? And he said, "I'd like for you to anchor the news." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I can do that." And then shortly thereafter, I was given my own show.
Yeah.
Now that was great, except that the head of production was still there. And so he was kind of like, "Well, if we're going to have you on TV, we got to make you look older." So like they dressed me a certain way and did my hair and my makeup.
I saw some of those. Yeah. I did.
You see why that's not on my website, right?
Hilarious. I remember making the mental note. I was like, what were they thinking when they were producing that? Because that's not her. And
Exactly.
I got that. Yeah, I got that.
Exactly. That's not her. That's not the me that I am today.
Yeah.
But again, because I was a performer in my early life, at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm a doctor playing a doctor on TV. Okay, I can do this little newsy, authoritative, mature role. But again, after about a year, I was like, oh, this is not fitting. And worse than that, I had opened a wellness center where I was doing acupuncture and integrative therapies, really advanced stuff. Yeah. But I could only portray a sliver of that on TV. And then after a little while, I got on the Oprah Winfrey Show. I started to appear on other TV networks. And so people around town were starting to recognize me. But they recognized me as the woman on the TV and not as the real me.
Wow, yeah.
And that was when this first kind of like twinge of, this is inauthentic. Like it was fun for a while, but then I'm like, this is not who I am. It's not what I represent. There's so much more to me that I wanted to share. Totally. And eventually it got to the point where I felt like every day was a struggle to just put on that mask and go do the news. And I was hosting my own show and appearing all these places, but I'm like, this is not who I really am. And that feeling of being a fraud started to eat away at me. And it was just a few years later, not even 5 years later, that I really got to a point where I was like, I couldn't handle it. It was the constant anxiety, this constant feeling like someone's going to find out that this is not.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Right. And I had a moment where I was like, I don't want this anymore. I just don't. And I confessed that to somebody, and this woman was like, girl, you should be grateful.
Yeah, I know.
And I was grateful. I am so grateful for the start that I got at Discovery, but it didn't feel good. So I started to feel really isolated, like I couldn't even tell people my truth. And I eventually did have a breakdown. I went on an extended vacation, had a mystical out-of-body experience, which, as you know, I wrote about in my book. But it was that moment where I just completely surrendered. And I said, okay, calling out to the divine here. I can't go on like this. Right. You're going to have to tell me something else.
And tell me a little bit about that moment of, you said you used the word melt in your book. That somehow it melted away, something melted away in that moment of surrender.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you see me laughing now and smiling, okay? This has been 15 years in the making. But at that moment, I was in utter despair because I had gotten to a point in this vacation where I was on the French Riviera and I had just been singing in a nightclub. So I was like in this state of bliss and euphoria. And when I got back to my hotel room and I realized, God, in 2 days, I've got to go back.
Wow.
It was like this mounting, just this dark, heavy depression. You know what that feels like, apparently.
You mentioned it in the well, because last night I was watching the video, which I really was touched by, about Kate Spade and Anthony. Say his last name properly for me.
Bourdain.
Bourdain. Will you say it French way?
Bourdain, if we say it French.
Yeah, you said that, and I thought that was very honoring of him. And you said that if someone's trying to show you a rose, right? Like, hey, look at this pretty rose, or your life is great, or have gratitude. But when you're in that space and someone puts the rose in front of you, it's brown. You can't see the red. You can't see through that. And I loved that you said that. I've been there. I mean, I think I would arguably say most writers, artists who are struggling have been there, you know? So when you say that, when you say you suddenly looked at your life and, oh my God, in 2 days, and everything, it sounds to me, did that brown thing that you
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I felt like, I mean, I would not have taken my life.
Right.
I wouldn't have committed suicide, but I knew that I didn't want the life anymore. And I called out to God and said, take my life. And as I was crying, that's when I kind of surrendered, and I was literally desperate.
Yeah.
And that's when my body seemed to melt into the bed. And then there was this bright, intense light. I felt myself being drawn into the light. And I was like, oh, snap, God's answering my prayer. But Dawn, the thing is, I just felt such peace.
Yeah.
Like the contrast between the darkness and the despair and the peace that I felt, that love. I didn't struggle with it. I just completely surrendered. And that's when I saw this vision. I got to what I consider the other side, and I saw a vision of my entire life pass in front of me. And that's when I saw that when we come to Earth, we're the ones that get to be the author of this heroic life story, not, you know, our society, our parents, the medical association. It's up to us. And when I got that understanding, I was shown a vision. Another vision appeared of me living a completely different future that I would have ever imagined. Living on the French Riviera, walking hand in hand with a child. I was singing, I was healing with my hands, which admittedly at the time I was like, oh great, now I'm a woo-woo doctor.
I love it.
But there was a sense of peace, and that's when I said yes to life. And then I came back into my body, and that darkness was gone and has not returned to that degree since.
That's fabulous. The reason I really wanted you to tell this story is a huge demographic of the people watching this are men and women, mostly women, over 40, who have been successful, who have lived into a life, who have done the things they were supposed to do and had some joy and fantastic experiences. And yet they are feeling empty because they're writers, they're creatives, and they don't know how to give themselves permission to do creativity, to break through the resistance, to ignite the muse, to honor the soul's calling, because there's a feeling of like, well, what is that going to do?
Exactly.
And what it does, and what I'm hearing, and you're a doctor, which is fabulous. I had someone recently say, well, you know, woman was suffering from cancer. She went to 23 doctors, and she landed on the doctor that said, the first thing I want you to do is go ballroom dancing and paint.
I love it.
And she decided to say, I'm going to work with that doctor. And she feared herself, because he said, well, you know how they used to laugh at acupuncture, and they used to laugh at yoga, and they used to laugh at meditation. And now we see this very commonly as a prescription for our health. He said, very shortly, we're going to have creativity as part of our health prescription, you know?
Yes.
Talk to us about the writing. You're obviously a prolific writer. You're obviously, you know, you write amazing work. You get it out there. You hit it you nail it. I'm sure you don't nail it the first time. I'm sure you have to go through a draft or two to get there. When you go through that, well, tell us about creative resistance in your life and how you managed to get through that.
Oh gosh. Well, the first time I hit it, I was still at Discovery Channel. And another visionary mentor that I bumped into was looking at a blog post that I wrote. And she said, that's a book. I'm like, it's a blog post. I know it's a little long, but it's just an article. She's like, no, I can tell you how this could become a book. Now, I didn't realize that Rita, before she came to Discovery, was working in publishing.
Oh,
And
cool.
she said that 5-step plan could be a book. And so at first, like so many other writers, I went through, why would I write a book? And who would want to read a book by me? I mean, there's already Deepak, there's Wayne, there's Christian North, you know. And she said, Andrea, you may have a similar message, but you're a different messenger and you have a different voice.
Absolutely.
And people may not be drawn to those authors or resonate with them, but they will be drawn to and they will resonate with you. And that clicked. And I was like, okay, I started writing on my own, just kind of privately, but I eventually did get that first book deal and shared from my heart. I did my best.
Yes.
Of course, over time, I actually didn't publish anything for years after that.
Yeah, that happens. Very common.
Yeah, because I kind of went into this, okay, that was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Now what?
Yeah.
It took a little bit of time for me to get to the point where I had something new to say.
Yeah.
But once it came, like you've seen, I have written like
it's amazing.
So many books now. But I tell you what, for me, at the stage that I'm at in my life is I've recognized the power of surrender. And I've recognized that in as much as I may have a message, I know that it's coming from somewhere else.
Excellent.
Now, you talk about, awakening this muse. I really believe that it is a spiritual connection. The times that I write from my brain where I'm like, oh, I just need to get something out, is completely different than when I'm tuned into inspiration. And so now I could be out going for a run. I could be chopping vegetables. If I get this intuitive hit or twinge, it's like, okay, something wants to come through me. I honor it. And whether it's in a video or a song or writing, I just say, okay, I'm a vessel.
Yes.
I am going to allow this to come through. And it takes practice, but I say, do it without trying to be the editor at the same time as the writer.
Excellent. Thank you. Please say that again. I really need to hear it.
No, for me, my first draft, I have to get it out and just be the writer, be the channel through which this energy and information comes, and not wear the hat of the editor. Because I've done that enough times that when I'm wearing the editor hat at the same time, for me it was always, oh, well, what is Dr. Peck going to think?
Yes.
The dean of our medical school. As if the dean of my medical school is ever going to take the time to read some of my... I digress. But we have this little editor function in our mind, and you have to just say repeatedly sometimes, no, I'm turning you off for now. For now, I'm just going to be in the writer mode because I know it's going to get edited. Once you know how writing works, of course, there's going to be an editor or two.
Totally.
So when you can just choose consciously to be that writer, to be that vessel through which this energy is coming, and try not to censor yourself, I find that the work is so much better. Now, it doesn't always come perfectly. I might read it later and be like, oh, this section really needs to go here.
For sure.
And move things around. But to get in that flow where things can really just move through me, that's my process.
I have a question about that. I have occasionally, well, I'd say 1 out of 10 clients, not a whole lot, but they get they're incredible. First of all, let's just put it this way. These women are doing things that I couldn't even imagine that they're doing in their lives. And then when they finally push through and they just get something out, because they're so perfectionists, they're so scared of writing, it's all in their head, they've got great ideas, they're taking notes, and I'm like, let's just do like a shitty first draft, right? Anne Lamott coined the term in the book, bird by bird. I was in grad school, I remember they made us write the shitty first draft, so it's a term. But she did it, and well, this is I'm going to say one person, but it represents a particular type of client. And I go, wow, look at that. And then they go, I'm just going to wait until the inspiration comes. And then it will flow out of me and we'll just do that. And my job, they, pay me the big bucks for, is to actually say, yeah, that's not quite how that works. there's something about coming to the table, igniting the muse. They say you come to the table and the muse will meet you there.
Yeah.
How can you maybe speak to those that are afraid and kind of convinced that there's going to be a come to Jesus one day moment where the whole thing is going to pour out? Because you wrote that first book, paused, and then you got back on the horse. What is it about coming to the table that allows the channel to open?
What is it about coming to the table that allows the channel to open?
As opposed to waiting for the channel to open and then coming to the table.
It's an acknowledgement. It's a recognition.
Awesome.
Coming to the table is a sort of ritual.
Wow.
You are, by the nature of showing up in front of your laptop or that pen and pad, you are opening up an invitation, opening up a door or a space for that muse or that creativity or inspiration to arrive. And so just by taking that action, it's as if you are sending out this invitation. And I find that for people who do struggle in this way, if you just make the commitment that you will sit down and you will invite inspiration to come. You don't wait, because for sometimes, and this happens to me all the time, I'll be driving down the street and inspiration shows up. I'm like, hello, I have to be, you know.
That's when your recorder comes out, right?
Exactly. I mean, I pull over, turn on voice notes, and then go. But I find that the more that I get into a regular practice, then inspiration is like, oh, Andrea's there. Okay, here I come. And sometimes it is only like a morsel of an idea. Right. And that is enough for me to get started. And if you would be willing to at least give yourself that ritual without going into your head and judging it and just saying, hey, I'm here. Use me. Talk to me. Show up.
I have to say, I've asked that question numerous times, and that was the most beautiful rendition of how that works, the invitation, you know. And I feel like that's something that we miss. You know, it took me years to realize that myself.
But think about it, Dawn. Like, how many times has someone said, hey, Dawn, you know, you want to come over? I mean, my house is a mess and I don't have any good food, but yeah, I'd like to see you. Like, you're not going to say yes to that.
Yeah.
But if I say, hey, inspiration, I'm here. I've got my cup of chai.
Yes.
What's good? Come and talk to me. Then inspiration is going to be like, okay, that's a nice invitation. I'll show up.
Billy Collins, who I've been obsessed with lately because he's hilarious, talks about how the poet, my main love is poetry, and I've had a lot of success in poetry, but and then I didn't, because I was working, because I thought, oh, I should be doing my work and building my business, and poetry just seemed like this frivolous little side note, and I learned the hard way that it was not a frivolous little side note. It was my lifeblood. And so anyway, what I love about him is he says, even if you sit down and you just stare out the window, but you've got your chai, you've invited, you're sitting, and in that moment, if the daydreaming is there, that's okay. That's part of the writing. Yeah. And then make sure you tap a little on those keys, but don't judge yourself for the part that I think is so important, which is the resting into it for a moment. You know, and writers, I think, we're great at staring out windows, but we get the downloads if we allow that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So great. Oh my God, you're phenomenal. How about, what would you say back when you were, you know, before, like after the first book, or even before the first book, when you were like, oh God, I'm actually really in struggle resistance. Like, I got my chai, I got this, one or two things that if you're really fighting it, that maybe works for you. I mean, you're far beyond that now, but back
I'm going back to a time when I was also in resistance, and it was because the subject matter coming through was not something I wanted to talk about.
Excellent.
I wrote a book called The Orgasm Prescription for Women. And the first time that concept came to me was after appearing on the Dr. Oz show, where I told women that they should have 3 orgasms a week.
And by the way, they clapped real loud. I saw that.
They were shocked. But at first I was like, I don't want to be known as the sex doctor, because, you know, that's part of my medical business. And so I went into judgment again. And that's the whole thing.
Wow.
When you're in judgment, it's pretty hard to show up. And the way that I actually broke through that one was being in community. So I talk a lot about visionary mentors helping us. Like what you do is just being there for your clients and showing them you've got this.
Yeah.
The other piece of it for me is being in community, because when you're connected with people who are like you, not your friends who are like, oh, you're writing another book, or oh, you know, or whatever, friends, family, whatever. When you get to connect with a community who actually sees the value, or it could be just one email I get from someone who's saying, oh my God, this really touched me. You made my day. It kind of reminds me that this is not about me.
Oh,
if we believe that we are truly a vessel for this inspiration stuff to come through, then it's really not about us.
Totally.
And definitely when I started to move into the more spiritual side of working with spiritual writers and healers, I realized that this is a big calling. And I love that you say that. This is a calling. This is not just a job. It's not a career, although we do earn money and we provide for our families through this job. But when you really step into owning this as a part of your soul's destiny, this calling takes on a whole new dimension. And that was what allowed me to put my ego in check and say, honey, this is not about you. And it doesn't even matter. Even if I write the greatest thing, there's always going to be someone who criticizes or just finds some fault or finds something that they challenge. And as soon as I've just said, I am doing my soul's work, I have to do it. Because this is the thing, you've probably heard me say this before, Dawn, but I truly believe that when we start to feel these urges, even if we're not in that inspiration moment at that moment, but we know that there's this calling, this urge, this nudge, then that means that there's already an audience assembling.
Yes.
They're already coming and they're waiting for you.
Yes.
And for us to sit in our egoic, judgmental, perfectionistic stance is robbing them of the information they need. Now they may be standing in that bookstore looking for your book and it's not there. And so, you know, or they're online, they get someone else's book with a similar concept. It doesn't satisfy them.
Absolutely.
Because what's inside of you is what they're waiting for. And if you can recognize that, then it can be that one step that says, okay, ego, I got to let you go. Because right now, my audience is waiting.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that so much. One last one. And then the time has already gone by. You specifically say something that comes up a lot when I, I'm kind of addicted to the Gaia channel and I listen to read all the peoples, all the ones. And the thing that you said that I thought was great is that you have to be yourself. You have to learn to discover, and that's part of I Love You Me, who you are and be that, be yourself. One bit of inspiration maybe that you have to leave with the audience that for them to really understand how important it is to be yourself.
Well, nobody else can be you. And as much as we may try to fit the mold or try to be like, insert famous author here, we're never going to be as good as them. But there's nobody out there who can be as good at you as you can.
Yeah.
And again, for me, I'm one of those silly humans that has to hit rock bottom or hit her head several times. Go figure. For me, I got to another point where I was so frustrated. And I don't know, I'm sure you probably heard some of your clients say this, that they had an idea and they maybe wrote a little bit and then they sat on it. And then a year or 2 years later, boom, someone comes out with a New York Times bestseller and they're on, right? And it's like, I had that idea years ago. And it's like, well, fool, you didn't come out with it. It's as if the divine is saying, look, I got to get this message out. Who's willing?
Totally.
And there's a couple of feelings I don't do well with in life. And one of those feelings is regret.
Ooh,
That twingy feeling, I don't like it. And so I learned for me that it's like, Andrea, you can keep hiding who you really are, or you can bring it. And I know that when I finally step up and speak my truth, I feel better. I feel relieved. And so the first time I was invited actually to a group book before I published my next big book by myself, I shared my story in a group book. And this was the first time that I came totally clean about my history of depression, my spiritual woo-woo experiences. And at the time, I didn't know if anyone would read the book, but I said, I'm doing this for me to clear the slate, to come out as my authentic self. And it was the craziest thing. As much as I was afraid that, oh, this is going to hurt my credibility, it was completely the opposite. People were able to like connect with me. They felt me, they felt my pain, but they also felt my victory.
Yes.
And it opened up speaking engagements on podcasts, on stages. And suddenly I'm like, oh my God, there's like huge benefits to being the real me. I no longer have to fake and hide and make stuff to look good. I could just show up as me. And so I think that's the last thing I would say is that dare to do it. And see what happens, and see that you'll find that you don't die. People don't throw rocks at you. You actually live, and you're actually appreciated. You're validated for having a true human experience. And that's what opened me up to continue to write year after year, multiple books a year, and to now help other people do the same thing.
Andrea, you're such a gift to the world. I can't thank you enough for being on the show. You're just fantastic. And you have a free gift for us.
That's right. For those people who are just a little bit curious about what it takes to either self-publish or do group books or go after a book deal, I've put together a very simple video training on publishing essentials. It's the Publishing Essentials mini class. And I also include some interviews with some other authors who've done both. Like I've done big deal publishing with a major publisher, and I've done self-publishing in between. And so it's a nice way to explore this publishing world so that you can see where your writing is going.
Oh, that's a perfect gift for this audience. Thank you so, so much. I'm so glad you're living into your beautiful life. And I hope someday maybe we'll meet or we'll do something together, or at the very least, I'm super stoked about your book, and you are coming out with a second edition, you said.
That's right. I've expanded upon it. So the second edition of I Love You Me is coming. And audiobook.
Pay attention, people. Pay attention. Get her stuff. She's amazing. Thank you, Andrea. I really appreciate it. Bye. Have a great day.
Bye.